Hey everyone, welcome to today's Explainer. We are looking at a completely absurd yet absolutely fascinating thought experiment sent into XKCD by someone named G. Now, G asked a seemingly innocent question that accidentally spirals into some seriously intense physics and chemistry. So get comfortable because we're about to scale up your kitchen fruit bowl to a massive industrial level. Okay, let's dive into this. The question G asked was, how many bananas would you need to power a house? Now, you might be wondering, why bananas? Well, you've probably heard the trivia that bananas emit radiation. They contain potassium, and a very, very small fraction of that is a naturally radioactive isotope called potassium-40. But before you start looking at your breakfast with suspicion, I promise you they are perfectly safe. That is, of course, until you try to string them all together to build a municipal power grid. Section 1. The banana radiation myth. To really get this, we need to address why bananas have this terrifying reputation in the first place. The whole radioactive banana factoid was actually popularized by well-meaning nuclear engineers. They were just trying to reassure people about everyday background radiation, but man, it severely backfired into a PR nightmare. Bananas suddenly became the poster child for radioactive food. But looking at data from the CRC Handbook of Radiation Measurement and Protection, everyday items like coconuts, peanuts, and sweet potatoes all have far more potassium-40. In fact, a large cheese pizza is about 3 times more radioactive than a banana. But honestly, here's my absolute favorite part of this whole myth. Do you want to know what the most radioactive thing in the room actually is? It's you. The potassium-40 present naturally inside your own body right now emits a lot more radiation than any of those foods combined. So the next time someone warns you about a radioactive banana, you can confidently remind them that you are far more radioactive than your snack. Section 2. The mechanics of decay. Now, what's really interesting about this is why this radiation is so remarkably weak. To understand that, we have to look at the atomic level. Potassium-40 decays incredibly slowly. It's basically playing the ultimate quantum waiting game, sitting around for millions or even billions of years. Imagine for a second that you are a single potassium-40 nucleus. Every single second, you have to follow an incredibly strict protocol. Step 1. You flip a coin. If it lands on tails, you do nothing. But if it's heads, you move to step 2. You grab 21 standard dice and roll them all at once. Only if every single one of those 21 dice comes up as a 6 do you finally get to step 3, where you decay, spit out a high-energy particle, and become stable calcium or argon. If you fail any part of that roll, you just wait for the next second and try the whole thing again. Those odds sound impossibly low, right? But here's the crazy thing about a single banana. It contains gazillions of atoms of potassium-40. Because there are so unimaginably many atoms rolling those dice every single second, the law of large numbers takes over. Even with those absurd odds of a heads plus 21 sixes, it still happens successfully about 10 or 15 times every single second in one average banana. So what actually happens when those 15 lucky atoms decay? Well, they release high-energy particles that immediately bonk into surrounding atoms, making everything vibrate just a little bit faster. And that vibration? That's heat energy. But the output from just 15 tiny decays a second is roughly a couple of picowatts of power. To put that into perspective, that is roughly the power consumption of just one single cell in the human body. So yeah, definitely not enough to run your refrigerator. Section 3. Powering a house. And this brilliantly illustrates the core of G's question. Because in principle, you absolutely can capture that tiny vibration of radioactive heat to do actual work. In fact, that's exactly how we power deep space missions, where solar panels just aren't viable. But the Mars rovers, like Curiosity and Perseverance, use a highly concentrated chunk of plutonium-238, which is dense enough to give them quadrillions of decays every single second. That releases a tremendous amount of sustained, usable power. Our poor banana, on the other hand, is stuck at a measly 15 decays per second. So let's run the math. If we assume you have some magical technology that captures that decay energy with 100% perfect efficiency, like literally zero heat lost at all, how many bananas would you need to power a standard house? The answer is 300 quadrillion bananas. Just take a moment to look at all those zeros. It's a number so massively large the human brain genuinely struggles to even comprehend it. To help comprehend 300 quadrillion bananas, let's visualize the volume for a second. If you piled up that many bananas just to get enough radioactive heat to power your living room lamps and your AC, that heap would be large enough to literally bury most of the skyscrapers in the entire New York City metro area. It's safe to say radioactive decay from fruit is a genuinely terrible, landscape-destroying source of energy. Let's move to and see how this builds. Section 4. The real banana threat. So we just proved that relying on the nuclear physics of a banana is incredibly inefficient. But what if we pivot to an alternative that is highly efficient, but incredibly catastrophic? I'm talking about chemical energy. You see, the banana itself is a fantastic energy source, just not a radioactive one. A single banana contains roughly 100 calories of food energy. If you treat a banana like coal or wood and you simply incinerate the whole thing as a chemical fuel source, it actually packs a really decent punch. If you built a custom banana-burning furnace in your basement, you wouldn't need quadrillions of them. By burning them for their chemical energy, it would only take about 10 bunches of bananas a day to keep your house running perfectly. That is an incredibly manageable grocery run compared to, wiping out a major metropolitan area. But here is the crucial point, and the real problem we've just created. Remember our thought experiment from a moment ago? We already gathered 300 quadrillion bananas and dumped them on top of New York City to make the radioactivity idea work. Unfortunately, physics dictates that radioactivity versus chemical energy isn't an either-or situation. Just because we only wanted the nuclear decay doesn't mean the chemical energy magically disappears. So, what happens to our skyscraper-sized pile? We get a rapidly escalating chain reaction. First, that incomprehensible mountain of bananas will begin to rot. Very quickly, the heat from millions of tons of decomposing fruit will completely overwhelm that tiny bit of radioactive heat we were originally trying to harvest. Deep inside this massive pile, anaerobic bacteria go into absolute overdrive, digesting the fruit and producing vast quantities of highly flammable methane gas. That methane then naturally starts bubbling up toward the surface of this incredibly hot, rotting banana swamp. And finally, when the heat and the gas meet, ignition. What we've accidentally engineered here isn't a power plant, it's a major industrial explosion hazard. And this isn't just a funny hypothetical either. Gas buildup from rotting food wastes at this kind of massive scale is a recognized highly dangerous chemical threat in the waste management industry. We've effectively built the world's most dangerous fruit-based bomb right over the eastern seaboard. And that perfectly sums up the takeaway from today's explainer, brilliantly captured in this quote. Don't worry about the radioactivity in bananas. It's the rest of the banana that's the real threat. It's a wonderful reminder that sometimes scary-sounding scientific buzzwords are practically harmless compared to the mundane reality of everyday chemical energy. It kind of makes you wonder, right? What other perfectly harmless things sitting in your kitchen right now are hiding a massive reservoir of explosive potential? Thanks so much for joining me to explore G's wonderful question, and I'll catch you in the next explainer.